Radio frequency identification, or RFID tag. The same technology used to tag animals to help reunite a pet with its owner. RFID has now won Food and Drug Administration approval for use in humans.
But it occurs to me, I've got them in my dogs. Why wouldn't I have them in small children, too? Verichip, subsidiary of publicly traded Applied Digital, has added Tommy Thompson to its board of directors.
Molly Phillips hopes her worst nightmare never happens again. To make sure, she had a new device called the Verichip, a computer chip about the size of a grain of rice placed under her skin.
If I had the chip, I could travel all over the world. That would give me the freedom of living a life without bounds.
An Ohio company has become the first American firm to implant silicon chips in employees to track their every move. Don't be surprised if your company asks to tag you.
Then there is the issue of privacy and whether employers might start demanding employees get the chip implanted as a form of ID.
In the 1980s, you take a polygraph test to get a job. In the 1990s, it was drug testing. A little later on, it was reading your email. And in each step along the line, you start to ask the question, is the law going to create any zones of safety?
Actually, it's an inexpensive solution versus a retina scanner or a fingerprint ID. Those solutions are rather expensive. A retina scan, a fingerprint ID.
Now, many of us carry around an equivalent to this tiny little chip already, only they don't look like this, they look like this.
Finished. We now have over 60 hospitals that have agreed to implement the system, so that time is nearing.
The way it works is it actually picks up and amplifies ambient electromagnetic energy from the reader devices. And if you have one of these things in your arm and you get within range of a powerful electromagnetic field, it can actually burn you.
Is there a vast RFID conspiracy out there that is they would say this is a slippery slope. This is the first thing. This is where you lull us into a false sense of security. We all get these things, and then the next thing you know, I don't know, it's
making
like this,
Soylent Green.
Like the truth. So that time is nearing.
It's closer than you think. Welcome to the future.
Making your life ultimately less technology-centered. If you do a really good job of this, you won't think about all the devices in your house that have microprocessors in them because they'll basically fade into the background.
But fading into the background is exactly what privacy advocate Catherine Albrecht is worried about. Albrecht's consumer organization Caspian is waging a campaign to educate the public about RFID technology. RFID is radio frequency identification. It consists of a tiny silicon computer chip and an antenna that a remote reader can scan and send to a database. RFID is the backbone of the Internet of Things, and it's already big business. For example, Walmart now requires all suppliers to use it to track its products, and the U.S. military uses it to follow supplies around the world.
You've literally got some of the biggest corporations on the globe investing hundreds of millions of dollars already in the infrastructure to make every physical object on Earth trackable. And then you've got the public who really has no idea that this technology is coming.
This tiny tube contains 150 RFID computer chips. Their size means companies or the government can easily hide them. Each chip can give a unique serial number to every product, and then its antenna helps remote scanners read the RFID tags, even through materials like fabric and plastic.
Right now, everywhere in the United States, it is perfectly legal for a company to place an RFID tag, say, in your shoe, sandwich it between the layers of your shoes. We've seen prototypes of those at trade shows. Sell that pair of shoes to you and use it as a tracking device.
Albrecht, the ACLU, and other civil liberties groups want a public assessment of the technology. But so far, they've found few friends in Washington. Although Bove calls the technology neutral and is quick to praise the benefits, he agrees that consumers need safeguards. For Albrecht, a first step would be labeling all RFID products.
When you really envision a world in which every physical object can be numbered and tracked, a physical world in which people can be numbered and tracked, in which RFID implants can be put into individuals, or maybe even in babies at birth, and every move that we make can be identified and logged in a computer database, you begin to raise some very frightening questions, I think, about power.
Such discussions are only beginning in Washington, but a full-fledged debate may need to take place in the very near future. Bove predicts the Internet of Things is coming to Europe.
Se coloca de esta forma. Se supone que ya aquí secuestraron a esta persona. Él presionó su botón. Avenida Zaragoza. Tengo una persona en 198 está teniendo una emergencia. Antes solamente era un secuestro por cuestiones económicas y estábamos hablando de que antes se secuestraban a personas clave, a personas reconocidas, a industriales, a ganaderos.
3-4 todavía. Eso traía viene. Problema en nuestra familia, oiga, no le vayan a y se chingan. Bueno, como hay gente toda aquí. Ver esto. Señor, pero todavía, perdona. Ya no lo pago.
For the 20 million Americans who live with diabetes, daily finger pricks are a painful part of life. Getting the proper glucose reading is critical in controlling your diabetes. There is now a group of biotech companies that say they can change the way diabetics monitor their blood sugars with an implantable microchip like this one.
We're here in New York to unveil to the world the plans for the development of an implantable glucose sensor using RFID, or radio frequency identification technology. A tiny microchip about the size of a grain of rice would be injected into the arm of a diabetic patient, where they could actually take their glucose reading from within the body on an external scanner, thereby negating the need to prick your finger 1 to 4 times a day.
Beast-Verichip Corporation has been a pioneer in RFID technology, first with their pet ID applications, and most recently in humans with their VeriMed patient identification system. They're now working with a biosensor development company, Receptors LLC, in hopes to develop a working prototype for the implantable glucose sensor over the next 6 months.
People have been trying to develop in vivo, in the body, glucose sensing technology for, I would say, roughly 30 years. And the projects have always failed because they haven't used an integrated approach. And that's one of the real strengths to this project.
It is anticipated that after this microchip is placed, the patient can painlessly monitor their blood sugars using a wireless scanner. The scanner also powers the microchip, avoiding the need for an internal battery. This easy, pain-free technology hopes to change the lives of millions of diabetics.
Well, I think the goal would be for a diabetic not to even remember that they're a diabetic, that it becomes so transparent
what they need to do that is just not a big deal to them anymore. Whereas right now, they really have to factor that into their lives.
But these efforts are just the beginning. The companies hope to have this chip tested, FDA approved, and in the market within 3 years. Diabetics can expect the sensor to last in their body for up to 6 months before a replacement is needed. I'm Dr. Manny, Fox News.